Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula has made an about turn on the capacity taxis can take. They are now only allowed to fill each vehicle up to 70%. They will now only be carrying 8 passengers. We go now to my colleague, Khayelihle Khumalo, who's at the Bree taxi rank for us in the heart of the Johannesburg CBD for an update on this. So, Kaya, based on what the minister said yesterday, what have you seen today, especially where masks are concerned and sanitizers, because each taxi, before you get on board, you're supposed to get a mask and you're supposed to get sanitized?
Well, by and large, Duduzile, there is a degree of compliance, but obviously you would have like a few cases where the taxi operators will just operate as normal. But we have had an opportunity of just driving around in central Johannesburg, observing. But I mean, obviously, to try and establish how all of this is unfolding, and perhaps to try and clear some cobwebs in this regard, we're joined now by the MEC for Transport here in Gauteng. That's, of course, MEC Mama. So, MEC, thank you so much indeed for your time. Just in terms of the compliance rate, I mean, obviously, in light of the decision to rescind some of the measures that have been put in place, but so far, what's your current assessment?
Well, firstly, thank you very much. Today, in the morning, we were at Bree taxi rank with the Honourable Minister Fikile Mbalula, where we clarified the issues. Firstly, the 70% passenger load. For example, a taxi with a capacity of 16 people will take 10 passengers. That issue is non-negotiable. It means law enforcement must prevail over it. And let's emphasize, as we did this morning, all taxi operators that are supporting essential service trips during the lockdown, we appeal to them. They must know we will not negotiate this. In our province here, we have even increased or doubled the amount of pounds. So if we impound your vehicle, you're going to have to pay 3,500. And we know there's a big outcry in the taxi industry about it. So law enforcement will have to prevail, because the taxi industry in particular and public transport in general cannot be the carrier of the virus, and they cannot expose our people to the virus, including themselves. And to this extent, what we have seen this morning after Minister provided clarity is that the taxi industry was complying. And we would really want to applaud them for that, but we hope that there will be consistency in complying with the directive that is being issued. Moreover, it follows extensive, consistent, principled consultations that have taken place.
And MEC, obviously, you're saying to those who are defiant, impounding of their vehicles will be one of the options that you'll consider. But what's going to be just another penalty? Are you just going to impound?
Already we have seen in this province, we have got cases where 4 taxi drivers were arrested. They have been charged. And we already are aware that the police and law enforcement are actually effecting arrests. We have already seen in one of the associations in Ekurhuleni, they have withdrawn. What is their reason? They are complaining about law enforcement. So the taxi industry has to appreciate that we are first protecting them as taxi operators, as drivers, as marshals. But secondly, we are also protecting our own people from the vehicles that could be carrying the virus. So in all cases, we are acting in the best interest of taxi drivers, taxi marshals, taxi operators, in the broad interest of the people themselves. So to this extent, what is important is we have actually crossed a very important line, which is that what has actually happened is there's now consensus in the sector between government, leading taxi structures, and that is a very qualitative and decisive step forward, because we have now found each other. And therefore, we do not expect any deviation from the 70% passenger load. So to that extent, I think the public transport space, the taxi industry in particular, the taxi industry leadership, we have made a qualitative, decisive advance because we have now found each other. I must also acknowledge that the taxi industry is a very complex space. It's not easy. It's a very complex area to navigate. And that's why you have been seeing the complexity of the matter. And I must also commend our Minister, Fikile Mbalula, for the way in which he has managed what would have been a very difficult moment. Imagine, if Minister couldn't navigate this space, we could have seen the taxi industry go on strike. Remember, it was announced, and through his intervention, it was withdrawn. Now you can imagine, the lockdown is dependent on essential services. Essential services is dependent on public transport within the prescribed time limits and the loads. If that was to be pulled down, it will have a severe impact on the lockdown itself. So really we must give credit to SGU, and I think Minister has done exceptionally well in making sure that he protects the lockdown, and the fact that there's been back and forth is precisely in the tactics, in the give and takes, in the negotiations, but also listening to the people. So that was really remarkable, commendable, and I think we must really appreciate that.
All right, MEC, thank you so much indeed for your time. So the MEC of Transport here in Gauteng really reaffirming the point that they do have a consensus in terms of the sector. And the taxi industry really is a very complex space because for the longest time it's been unregulated. But of course, it's very extraordinary times with these extraordinary measures as well taken.
Khayelihle Khumalo, and I beg your pardon, he's not at the Bree taxi rank, as you can evidently see. He's at the Department of Transport.